When a curveball gets thrown your way or things just don't go as planned, right? Very often it sidelines you. And it happens to the best of us. Matter of fact, it just recently happened to me over the last couple weeks. So today, let's chat about it and then how can you reset and what can you learn from these setbacks?
Check it out.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode 31. I am your host, Lori, and welcome to the Positivity Experience. If you hear noise in the background, it's because I have decided to sit outside this afternoon to do this podcast for you. So you're probably going to hear that high-pitched sound, and that's going to be our crickets and stuff like that. But hey, why not have some nature sounds over here too? They're just extremely loud. So hey guys, so yes, if you've been following weekly, you will notice that I was not here last week, and that's okay because things happen. And so I thought I'd give you more of a breakdown on some things that have happened, and sort of how I got sidelined a little bit, and then my road to come back. Because very often that's the biggest thing for, I think, a lot of people, and I mean myself included, right, is that you get sidelined or something or several things throw in your direction and you're not really sure how to handle it at times, and you just kind of let everything sort of get you overwhelmed. And that's where you come out of mindfulness. That's where you go back into human sort of trauma, all of those things, which, by the way, every one of those things happened to me over the last, I want to say, let's say month to be fair. But really over the last couple weeks, it's been a little crazy. And I know a lot of you follow me on some of my other socials. And so, a lot of things went down. So I figured that I would do this podcast, just kind of give you guys an update because you know me, I keep it extremely real with you guys. And it's, just me. And then kind of give you my methodology on how I'm circling back to getting back into the swing. So I know a lot of you, let's see, was that episode 28, I believe, was the self-harm episode with my daughter, and how, she was on her Lexapro and all of those things had happened. And of course, this was really like a couple weeks away from the trip that we had down to Florida with my son, Bugsy. Well, his nickname's Bugsy. With Bugsy, Sienna, and I, we were going down. My client had given us this great house down in Florida. And we were going to go down and hang out. Well, just like the week before is where I had kind of found all of the self-harm, and that was very problematic for me. And I think it was problematic for me because of the work that I do, is like doing therapy work and energy work. And, it's very, very difficult because it's the Achilles heel and the acceptance piece that, hey, you know what? You can help other people outside of your home, but the people in your home really have to check for themselves. I mean, with some direction, and I'll talk to you about that. And so I think honestly, some of that does become a little bit problematic from, from my perspective. So I was already a little taken by that, which I know you guys heard a couple episodes ago. And so then we went down to Florida, and it was actually good. I mean, but I was on edge, right? I was on edge because I'm like, okay. I fell back into that, okay, I need to fix this situation because it's my job. Not just as a parent, but it's my job. It's like this weird, well, if I can't fix my house, how can I fix everybody else? Of course, as I was talking to so many of my psychiatry friends, they're like, that's because we can't fix our house. That's why we're good at what we do. I'm like, very good point. But by the way, that was over a period of time. So when we got down to Florida, a lot of it was fun. I mean, we actually had a good time in Florida, except for the fact that my mother-in-law, who had been ill, had passed while we were in Florida. And the day before she passed, and because I'm intuitive as well, I knew it was really going to become a shit show. Not just because it's my mother-in-law and she's great and she passed, but because I knew it would be almost like a trigger point for her, for Sienna. And I knew it, and I knew it when it happened, and I was like, oh, fuck. So I really had to start getting on prep mode, and that's where it pulled me off of my mindfulness because I was in prep mode, and I do not like being in prep mode. Prep mode is not efficient, it's not sufficient, it's not productive, but it went into this, oh my God, okay, let me be prepared, let me fix. And I think there's still a little level of that going on right now, but I'll explain kind of where we are in that. And so it was tough. Nothing happened there, and we came back. Trip there was fine. It was still hard for me to stay present. I was trying really hard to stay present, but I was really struggling with a lot of post-traumatic stress from Bugsy situation, and then just things in my family, and just, oh my God, what is going on? Why can't I just solve this? So it really kind of threw me off, and it went back into some of my trauma. I was like, okay, I was mindful of it. I was making sure I was talking to my shamans, my psychiatry friends. Like, they're like, okay, you're good, you're fine, da 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 da. So we come back, and there was, she had a friend over, and that became a little bit more problematic as some boundaries were crossed, I think, a little bit from a sexual perspective. And so that was a problem. And then that Monday, later on that evening, she harmed again. But I didn't see it till the next morning. And I was like, okay, alrighty, I have to keep my shit straight because I pulled myself off of being my priority. And this is why you have to be your own priority, because when you're not your priority, it's easy to get caught up in everybody else's shit, right? And so this is what happened, right? So it started pre-trip, go down on trip, mother-in-law passes away, knew it was going to be problematic, came back, little incident happened there. That was uncool. And then now we have a new set of harm. So the next day, I'm working it. I was like, okay, well, I can't do anything about it right now. I went back to sort of some self-care. And then that night, the very next day, I went on to, when I went upstairs, her Twitter was open. And that's where some things were coming up about suicide and suicidal ideations and harm and all of those things. And I was done. I said, you know what? That's it. Done. Time to go inpatient. So I made some phone calls. I cleared my schedule. Went out to inpatient. That was extremely difficult for her. I mean, I guess for me too, but at that point, I know where my limitations are. And I know that when I start to deteriorate from my own mental health due to somebody else's stuff, then I have to really go into perseverance of self, right? So preserving myself and my mental health. So go out there, that becomes extremely tough, right? Because now, mind you, the very next day is the viewing, and the following day is the funeral. So she's going to miss a funeral. That becomes a little bit of a problem, but it was going to be what it was going to be. So the next day, so that night, we get a phone call, hysterical. Oh my God, I can't believe this place sucks, and which turns out to be different later on. And then the next day, when we're at the viewing, it's please come get me, please come get me. So there's a level that it pulls, not so much because I look at things differently. Because I look at it from more of a therapeutic perspective, and I think, okay, I don't have time to dedicate this right now to try to balance everybody. And at this point, I've lost myself. My husband lost his mom. My mother-in-law. I got this going on, and all this shit's happening. And I've had to rearrange people. I've had to cancel sessions. I've had to move. Okay, so now I'm like, okay, all right, let me just make sure this happens. I'm checking in on my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. Again, neglecting of self. This is why you've got to be your first priority. And I know this, but I was like, I went downhill. There was no exercising. There's no anything. Like, literally, it was just almost like a depressive phase. And I thought, okay, before this gets carried away, let me pick up the phone and call my doctor friend, which I did. And, well, it's actually my doctor, too. And so I said, okay, I need to get back on some antidepressants, like, ASAP. So I opted for the 25 milligrams of Zoloft, but I'm upping that to 50 milligrams because 50 milligrams is a pretty standard dose for OCD, like obsessive thinking and stuff like that. So I'm going to start that tomorrow as we speak, actually. And so, so all of this comes into play. There's a lot of variables. Okay, now she starts to kind of balance out a little bit in there and learn some strategies, but honestly, she kind of already knew them. It was just a way to keep her safe in that moment. And so then we have the funeral. Bugsy comes home. We go to the funeral. That was, really, really sad because my mother-in-law is such a great person, and all of the siblings, all of my husband's siblings were there, and so we have that going, and then Sienna's inpatient, and I'm literally have neglected myself. My health anxiety starts rearing its ugly head. My thanatophobia, which is your death anxiety, rears its ugly head, because I get that honestly from my mom, right? Like from when she had passed. And so I was like, okay, I have started to spiral. And I am not going to owe anybody an explanation for anything. I'm just like, you know what? I got to clear some schedules. I didn't clear all my schedules, just, as needed. And I was like, okay, clearly I have neglected myself. And now, however, here is where the adaptation and the reset starts to come into play. Because I'm like, okay, I'm starting to spiral out of control, and that is not cool, because I can't let other human beings, regardless of who they are, pull me down. And that's exactly what was happening, right? I was allowing that. It's not anybody else's fault. It's my own for allowing this process to happen. And so, fast forward ahead, we decided, Paul and I decided, you know what, you're not going to have a door. There's going to be no socials for a while. Like, we start making these plans, and, all while making sure that I have her aftercare plan set in stone as best that I can, because I can only do what I can do. I can't solve the world. And it, like I said, though, at this point, it wasn't even so much about everybody else as I was allowing myself to spiral based on old healed traumas, right? And so it became this level of a problematic sort of like, okay, I'm a little different, I think, than a lot of people because of how I handle things. I mean, I know some people handle it the same way, but when I'm going through stuff, I'm not going to necessarily reach out to people because I don't really need to, because they're not really going to do anything for me at that point, because they're not going to be able to give me the tools that I need, that I already have, right? Well, they have to come sit with me and be like, all right, let's do some deep breathing. Let's do some rituals. Like, it becomes, so there's a very small group of people, very, very small, like 3 people, that I would communicate a little bit of what was going on. But even some of my best friends, like, they would message, nothing. It was ghosted. I completely ghosted. And it, not because I shut down, it's because I don't need exterior people with, I'm sorry, which, can I help? Which, by the way, I appreciate and I love so much. But I needed to get myself back to a place, which I'm still working on, to get myself back to a place to where I was like, okay, I am going to use this time to sort of do a reset, which I needed to do anyway. And this is why I recommend doing a reset every 6 months to a year, maybe even more if needed. And so a reset for me is, I'm very available, right? I'm very available to not just my clients, but to friends and to family. Like, I'm just very available. And, I had to, like, I'm like, no, I'm not going to be available. Like, my weekends are my weekends. I'm not responding to people. My evenings are my evenings. I'm not responding to people. I mean, barring it being an absolute emergency. And I needed to make sure that I was like, okay, wait, I say I don't have the time now because I'm going till 10, 8, 9 o'clock at night because I'm trying to get back to people and I'm trying to fit people in. And I'm like, absolutely not, because it's not conducive to my mental health. And so I know this about myself, right? And I don't owe an apology to anybody, right? Because it's just kind of where I am. And it's the same thing for you. Like, when you go through a reset, you don't have to announce that to the world. It doesn't have to become a Facebook post. It doesn't have to be what you're doing. You don't have to go tell the world, okay, hey, new rules now. I mean, you just have to just allow yourself to sit with whatever is going to be the most beneficial for you. So, so here we are today, right? And, come last week, it was too much, like, between the funeral and people not being here, and then too many people being here. Oh my God, there was so many people in the house, and, like, I don't like people in the house. I never have, I never will. But of course, during a funeral, you're going to have people in and out. Luckily, we have a backyard, and, so that threw me off a little bit because it's all these people's energy in my house. And it just becomes a very interesting dynamic, right? But instead of fighting it, you allow it to come. So when you find yourself sort of going, damn it, can I catch a break? Because I'll tell you what happened last week too. You just kind of go, okay, I know when things start happening in succession like that, my vibrations have dropped tremendously, because you are going to attract the vibe in which you put out. So if you're vibrating low, you're going to attract low vibrating people and low vibrating situations, vice versa, right? So last week I'm like, okay, Wednesday she comes home. It's still a little awkward. Wednesday and Thursday, not great. Like, those were just not good days. And, again, not for the world to know. I mean, I don't care about telling you guys now, but in the present space, it's not, it's my stuff, right? No need for make people be like, oh my God, I feel so sorry for you. Like, that's not a thing. And so then Thursday morning, get up. I noticed my cat is not eating. Link, the really cute snuggly one, not the new one. That's Ezra. He did really well on Wednesday. And I noticed that he isn't eating. And I thought, that's really weird, because he's super greedy. Like, he's the cat that's going to come out of nowhere to find food. And I noticed, like, he's already had that deviated septum, and his breathing's really off. And I'm like, oh my God, this sucks. So I called my friend Todd, who's a vet, and I said, okay, need to come in, let's come. He's like, okay, bring him here right now. So I have to cancel like 2 or 3 sessions on Friday. Or was it Thursday? I think that was Thursday. Yeah, that was Thursday. And so I had to cancel a couple sessions. I take him in, and he's like, okay, he's got a fever. He's got a really bad upper respiratory infection. I'm going to give him the shot of antibiotics. He should start feeling better in a few days. Well, we are a few days out, and it is Sunday, and he is still not eating. But I do feel like he is getting a little bit better. Like, you can see his face. I mean, it's awful. Like, if you saw a picture of him, I know if you were on Instagram, you probably did. But his face is just like, he can't even stay awake because he's so sick. Like, if you're sick, you're sick. And the doctor's like, this happens with upper respiratory. So I'm keeping my eye on him. And then, again, it's the reevaluation. And so I literally said on the way to the vet on Thursday, I was like, ooh, okay, clearly I'm vibrating entirely too low. And when that happens, I have to distance myself from people, right? So I finished up just a couple sessions on Friday. Well, they were like kind of like email stuff. And then that was kind of it. And I said, you know what? It is what it is. I mean, no, is it ideal? Of course it isn't ideal. It's like going to your dentist. You have a dental appointment booked 6 months in advance. You're ready to go to the dentist or the doctor or whatever it is. And your doctor's like, oh, sorry, you got to cancel. Because shit happens, right? Like, things happen. And I mean, it's just what it is, right? And so, and then so Kim, best friend Kim, you guys know my best friend, she came down with Mark on Friday night because she turned 50 on Monday. And so she came down, and me, her, and Sienna went to the mall over in Delaware yesterday. She was only down for the night. And, it was really, really nice. And my friend Ellen is supposed to come over. I was supposed to go to this really cool Van Gogh experience thing in DC. I bought tickets for everybody, like me and my 3 girlfriends, like months ago. But because, I have to take Sienna to the doctors, and there's a lot of things that need to happen here still at the house, that I was just like, okay, you guys go without me because things happen. But then Ellen is going to swing by here. She lives in Jersey. She's going to stay the night, and, just a nice little regroup. So I say that to you guys because when you are in that space of feeling like you're spiraling out of control, number one, don't try to like over control it. Acknowledge it for what it is, and then step outside of that space and look at where you have allowed those shortcomings to come into play. Are you doing your mindfulness? Have you done your journaling? Have you done your grounding? Are you giving too much energetically to everybody around you, including family? And if that's the case, then you need to pause. So the last couple of days I've paused. Like I said, I used to sort of respond to things sometimes on the weekends. And I'm like, skirt, not happening. Or after 5 o'clock my time, skirt, not happening. And allowing myself to really hold up to that. And I will tell you another thing that I did that I love is, so I have the screen time on my phone. I have it to where I can only surf the internet and socials for 1 hour a day. After that, it turns it off. And I'm so okay with this. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how okay I am with it, except for on Tuesday night when I go live on TikTok. I'm only going to do about 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour. That's the longest I'm doing on a Tuesday night. And so it's just allowing myself to get myself back as my priority. So what you'll find is very often when situations happen and it throws off and you don't ground and you don't balance right away, it's going to lower that vibration and it's going to pick up. Now, do I know what's going to happen with her? I do not. Is there a level of frustration? There is. Is there a level of sort of holding my breath? There is. However, I got to separate that based on my own self-care, right? And again, just, you know what? I'm really being very strict about work. This is my work time. This is my play time. This is my family time. This is, but most importantly, this is my me time. And I definitely encourage you to do that before you sort of fall off sort of the rails, so to speak, because at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you. Nobody else has to understand it. I mean, seriously, nobody else has to understand it. Nobody else has to like it. But you've got to be able to put yourself in that space of saying, okay, what is important to me? I'm going to make sure that I'm taking care of that, because it's nobody else's job to take care of it for you. That's where you have to be careful of codependency, desire, need, fear of abandonment. Those will all come if you have had that as a trauma response. That will become a little bit more problematic for you, especially if things change. Like, let's say your sister's there all the time, and then now your sister's on this journey for wellness and she's not available for you. That's going to become a little bit of a problem for you, but it's not her fault. It's not your fault either, but it is allowing yourself the adaptability. So then in itself, you have to ask yourself that question. How adaptable are you? Now, if you've had trauma, you're not going to be super adaptable because you're going to have a struggle with it. And, here's the thing though, it's going to be what it's going to be. There's a level of acceptance that comes into play that A, you can't change other people. B, they do not have to do things the way that you would want to do them because you got to stop expecting you out of people. 3 is that when things get thrown your way, you cannot control the situations or the people, but you can control how you respond to them. And if you find yourself getting agitated and angry, then you have to check yourself and go, why? I mean, it's a normal human reaction. So you can say, okay, well, you know what? I feel a certain kind of way. So you allow yourself to feel the feelings, but you don't allow yourself to live in it. And then very often you say, okay, what am I doing? Am I doing or am I being? Because if you're doing activities to feel better, you're not being in the space to feel better. You're just doing the activities. Okay, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna breathe, I'm gonna journal, I'm gonna plan my day, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna eat right, okay, that's doing, that's not being. Mindfulness is being in the space with no expectation of feeling better. You're just there in the moment. And so that's where I think people fall a little short when it comes to wellness, because you're trying to do the activities to feel better and you want more. And sometimes you got to pause, slow down. Sometimes, always remember this. This is a Taoist proverb that you cannot see your face in running water. You can only see your face in clear water. And that's a fact. And that's the true statement. If you do see your face in running water, it becomes very skewed, very blurred. And so then the way that you see things are going to be very blurred and very skewed. And so what you do is you got to allow yourself that space to take care of yourself. And then where are you triggered? Like I said, with Sienna, it's not being able to control and stop a situation that I know that if you just listen to me, you'd feel better. But it's not my journey to walk. And so I can't lose my journey in somebody else's journey. And so when you catch yourself doing that, I mean, I'm still a human being. I'm allowed to have my feelings. I'm allowed to have my emotions. But that's where you want to create better boundaries, not just for self, but everybody around you, your friends, your family, your workers, your coworkers, your employees, whatever the case may be. And so what I would encourage you to do is go, okay, do you have a hard time respecting somebody else's boundaries that may have changed? Well, that's a you thing, okay? Because that means that you have a hard time adapting to something or a hard time with change. And so it's good to know, hey, that's where I need to work. That's what I need to work on. Because you want to be careful of becoming codependent. And you, again, could be children, could be anything. You want to be really careful of that because that's going to get you caught up in feeling isolated and feeling alone and all of these things that come into play. So you want to be extremely careful of that. Another thing to be mindful of is literally sit back later on today or tomorrow, whenever you're listening to this, is allow yourself to sit back and reevaluate what makes you tick. And if everything that's making you tick or everything that has pulled you down has been other people, that again is a you issue because that means that you're reliant upon other people to make you whole and to sort of establish the narrative. And it's not really the other people's fault. It's just how you process. So, that's what kind of a reset is. A reset is not having to announce to the world, these are your changes. You just create the reset and you go, okay, what works for you? Because very often, regardless of who you are and how good you are at setting boundaries, you allow things to blur boundaries. Like oh, well, I can do this once. I can do this once. I'll take on this load from you once. I can do this for you once. And then now all of these things that you're doing once, you're doing a lot for a lot of different people. And now, again, you are decreasing it from yourself. You are not giving yourself the space and grace and the importance, which is where I have fallen into for the last month. Again, is it an overnight fix? It is not. But is the boundaries in which I'm establishing for myself with work and with personal and with mental and with being able to make sure that I'm getting in my exercise again? Absolutely. That is going to be my first and always major priority. And the moment I fell off of that due to obviously situations is the moment that it's been just a shit ride for the last like 3 or 4 weeks. And so I know where that comes from, and you can't blame other people because that you just can't. You can't blame other people. And so when you're in that space and you say, okay, what do I need to do to reset? You do not have to explain it to anybody, nor do you have to make them understand it and enjoy it. Like, it's just how it is. It's kind of like, I guess, Noah's Ark. Build the ship. If they want to come, they come. If they don't, they don't. But you don't want to fight on that. And so that's where you want to say, okay, what's going on? Now, as far as helping other people, especially if they're dealing with some mental instability, again, got to know your limitations. When it got to the point when I was like, oh no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not handling this on my own. And so then I made the call that needed to be made, and it happened. And it doesn't matter if anybody else likes it. You do the best thing that you can do to protect your peace as well, right? And everybody involved. And so it's allowing yourself that space, because if you start overthinking things, then you're just not going to do them, or you're going to do them and they're going to have a lot of guilt behind it and shame. And guilt and shame that's not effective. Again, very much a trauma response. That's very much the fawn response, people pleasing, and all of those things. And you just can't do that when you're in the middle of a reset. When you're trying to establish boundaries, you can't people please for everybody else. You got to do what's going to be the best for you. And honestly, you may not even know what that is. I mean, you guys know that. You guys know I work with clients all over the world doing that. And guess what? I am a human being. And when things go awry, I am allowed to take time. And I will always do that. And so are you, right? So are you. So when you get all caught up in your space, and you're like, well, I have this responsibility. Okay, don't let your ego take over. Know when you need a break, you take the break. It doesn't have to be ideal for anybody else. But you got to allow yourself to get there. You got to allow yourself to do the reset. Because very often you'll stay in that spinning cycle, and you'll spin because it's familiar. So when you're spinning out, you're familiar with a controlled chaos. So when you're familiar with a controlled chaos, then you're going to stay in the controlled chaos even though you don't like it. But it's because it's easier. Because you guys know nothing grows in the comfort zone. It's a beautiful place to visit, but nothing grows there. Nothing. So that's kind of where I've been, right? Like, I've allowed myself to be pulled off track. Situations happened, but that's not a thing where you get to say, oh, well, situations made me feel bad and now I'm sad. And yeah, those are all things that are real, but it's that I allowed myself to be pulled off track. No one else can do that except for you. And so it's about getting myself back on base. And I know that it took me a little bit over a month to get here. It's going to take me probably about the same to get myself back. But yeah, and I realized too, like, I need to have a couple podcasts in the hopper for the days that I don't want to, on weekends, if I'm feeling down or depressed or sad or overwhelmed, I already have one in the hopper for you guys. So yeah, there's a lot of things that come with the reset. So when life is throwing you different kind of lemons, making lemonade, right? When that's happening, remember, you have got to be your first priority. You got to sit back and you got to say, what do I need to do to reset? And then allow yourself the space. And don't worry about having to explain it to the world, because you don't have to explain it to the world. You just want to make sure that it's something that you're in alignment with. Nothing needs to be announced. Everything just needs to be like, you just need to just get it together, right? Like, just sit with it and get it together. And because you know what? That's this amazing thing called life that we live. You're going to have those ups. You're going to have those downs. It's how you're going to respond to them. Because if you're looking for that perfection all the time, you're going to be really upset because it's not going to work in your favor. So you can plan for the best, but remember, your plan is not the plan. And if you're having a hard time with the plans changing and you have a hard time with change, that's another place to work on, because that is a trauma response, right? So yeah, guys, that's where I've been. In the show notes, it'll have my website, to follow me on all of my socials. This also gets posted on my YouTube. But yeah, I plan on being back. That's my plan. We'll see how the week goes. But sometimes you got to learn to roll with the punches. And the punches sometimes are going to punch you really hard in the face. And it's up to you. Are you going to keep saying, oh my God, my face, my face, my face? Or are you going to be like, damn, I got punched in the face. Okay, how can I know to get myself back on the footing? So it takes time, but no one is going to do it for you but you. And always know that going forward, because remember, you are the only person that you are guaranteed to spend 100% of your life with. No family, no friends, just you. Check it out.